TG Geeks, episode 136, September 25th, 2017. Something old is new again. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm coming to you, who am I? I'm Keith Lane, and I'm coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, cooling off Phoenix, Arizona.
And I got nothing. I'm Ben. I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. You so messed me up with that, your little stumble there.
No, I had a little stumble. I couldn't remember who I was. That's daily, though. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Do the voices in your head all have names?
Yes, they do.
You got them all mixed up?
Yes, I do. Well, we got something really exciting for you today. We've got a new thing that is kind of old, and we're going to kind of just launch right into it here. It's an interview and then a little other segment in the second segment. So,
yeah, don't want to quite say what it is yet.
Don't want to give it away, but you'll get the idea. So here we go. And this time we have a really special treat for you. We have Neal and Jana Hallford of Swords and Circuses. Swords and Circuses.
Wasn't that a Star Trek episode?
Yeah, I think it was. Swords and Circuitry Studios, who have a new project called Uncharted Regions. And I'm going to let Neal and Jana tell us about who they are briefly, and then we'll talk about how Uncharted Regions came about and what that is. Welcome to the show, Neal and Jana.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you again for having us on. Yeah, I'm Neal Hallford. I'm Jana and I are both executive producers on the project as well as directors and writers and such. I kind of got started off on a earlier iteration of Uncharted Regions many years ago, and so this is kind of a revival of that project. And Jana, can hop in about her thoughts on that.
She has no thoughts on that.
And suddenly she's at a loss.
That's okay. So, Swords and Circuitry.
About me and just going right into the project.
Well, no, I was just kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was just blanking out on what to say, so let's just move on.
Yeah, so Swords and Circuitry is the main umbrella. That's your
production company,
if you will. And Uncharted Regions is a project of that. Is that correct? Is that the correct association, or?
Yes. It is. Swords and Circuitry Studios is the production company.
And then Uncharted Regions is the project that you're producing. So what is Uncharted Regions? What is that? Tell us what is that? What encompasses that? Well, we want you to share that with our listeners.
Uncharted Regions is an audio series of many different kinds of stories. They'll be coming from different authors besides Neal and I, but they all have some otherworldly or different element to them, something of the unexplained or something. They're not all necessarily science fiction fantasy stories, but they all have something that's different. I grew up with the Twilight Zone, and I
think a lot of us did, given our age.
Yeah.
Some of us, it was reruns, but we there's elements of that, and Neal will talk about Bradbury 13, other influences. So it's an audio series where the thread that weaves things together is that that twist of something otherworldly or unexplained or just not usual.
Right. And this is a planned season of how many episodes are you initially planning?
13 episodes for this season, and if all goes well, then we hopefully get another season. But 13 is actually a number that I kind of came at because of I was heavily influenced by whenever we were doing the first run of the series many years ago. I was heavily inspired by a series called Bradbury 13, and I think if you're going to have tales of the unusual and the weird and that sort of thing, that 13 is an appropriate number.
Of course it is, because of the whole 13 mythos, shall we say.
The supernatural connotations attached to it.
Exactly. So, and this is, you've already produced one episode. Yes. And that was, we got to hear that. We'll just say it's incredible.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it on a previous show.
Yeah.
On our last episode, we talked about it, and there was a little bit of a write-up on our website about how it was premiered at Horrible Imaginings Film Festival.
And this was Someday, and that's one word, comma, over you. So it's kind of an interesting twist on the title as well. So tell us about that, and how did that come about? Because there's an interesting story there, I know.
Someday Over You. The title, of course, it was a little bit inspired by the old song, Someone to Watch Over Me.
Right.
Was always kind of the inspiration for the title.
Which is one of my favorite Ella songs.
Yes. And so, it is a episode that revolves a great deal around music and jazz and the blues and everything else like that. And so, it's a story that actually that has been kind of sitting around for about 29 years. I actually wrote the first version of this story whenever I was a young lad and had just gotten out of high school and was working at a radio station. And so a buddy and I kind of decided to launch this weird tales kind of series called Uncharted Regions. And so we had sort of, it wasn't something that ran regularly, but we sort of intermittently every once in a while would pop out a new episode. And so that was the first run of the series. But as part of that, one of the episodes that I had written for that was this script for Someday Over You. And it and another script called Haven were two episodes that were ready. We were trying to get ready for them to get produced, but time went by and we didn't get a chance to finish those episodes. And so both of those scripts have been sitting in a drawer for all these years. And so then whenever Jana and I late last year started talking about a project to do together that would be kind of a little less stress than doing a short or a feature like some of our regular film projects.
Not to mention less expensive.
Yes, and less expensive.
Yeah.
But something that would still be fun and kind of engaging to do, I started talking about, hey, maybe it'd be fun to pull these two scripts out of the drawer and then launch a new run of the series, except with a lot better resources than I had to pull on whenever I was, 20 years old.
Right. So you pulled them out of the drawer and you chiseled the dust off of them.
Yes.
It was an archaeological dig.
After that long, you don't blow the dust off of it. You chisel the dust off.
Yes.
I told Neal that he is his own intern.
Yeah, exactly.
That kid actually is quite talented. That it's actually not all that much that's been revised. The couple of first
there were not really any super heavy changes, with the exception there are a few details at the end of Someday Over You that I changed just because they would have been a little less socially relevant now as they were whenever I originally wrote the episode.
You had to adjust for the technology of closer to now.
Yeah. And so there was a technological issue that I needed to change, but other than that, Someday Over You is pretty darn close to what I originally wrote. And I also, the original version was maybe just a tad wordier. Mm-hmm. than the new version, but other than that, it's still pretty much what I wrote as a kid, and it's one thing that actually surprises me is how well it held up, and I'm really excited about the next one that's coming up as well, called Haven, but that's something we've just finished the casting for, and we'll be moving on to probably in about another 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and a new piece of writing, and for that matter, composing, was Neal, you wrote the song finally after meaning to for all these years and having ideas of it.
I had a few snatches of lyrics that I'd written for, because this was again, because this is an episode that revolves around music and songs. There was an important song that's in the episode that, again, that's the title of the episode is also the title of the song. And I'd had snatches of that song kind of floating around in my head for years, but we finally got down to the point where we were able to get the song written, and so that was another aspect of this episode that was a little more challenging, because it wasn't just recording an episode, but it was really knocking off a single that would sound like a blues song from the 20s, 30s, 40s, that kind of time period.
Right. And
so that was a challenge as well. And given the fact that I've written a lot of music in the past, but primarily most of it has been instrumental. Mm-hmm. And so this one actually having something that had lyrics and kind of working my way through that particular minefield was a new experience, but it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what kind of challenges did you have to face to write a period piece of music like that? Because listening to the lyrics, I mean, it really does sound like something that came out of that time.
Yeah, I think that it was just, of course, that's one of the things that comes up for me in particular, is I have a great love for vintage stuff, and so we had a short that came out a few years ago that you guys reviewed a few years back for us, called The Case of Evil. And so I have a great love for really old jazz and blues, the kind of roots stuff that's out there. And so that's just kind of a natural heartbeat for me.
Right.
And it is for me also. That's something that Neal and I found out we had in common years ago when we were getting together, because I grew up with a lot of jazz and blues music around. Things like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee singing Rock Island Line are really the soundtrack of my childhood. And then when I was an adolescent, I started listening to more of even older stuff, things that were Library of Congress type recordings of Lead Belly and others. And I really
recordings.
Yes, and I loved the female vocalists of the early days. Some of the very early Billie Holiday music and such. It's so beautiful. She had a bell-like voice. So I actually thought about her a lot too when we were working on this. So that is something that is a strong influence on both of us, and a strong love.
And then you add the fact that whenever we're at home, if the television is on and we're not watching one of our genre, sci-fi shows or what have you, pretty much the rest of the time is split either between news, but the vast majority of the time we have TCM running on, and of course our favorite stuff is the old black and white, stuff, and so the soundtracks and the music for that time period. So it's something that I think is very personal. As if everything would have a vintage element to it, but it is something that I think is definitely in the DNA of how we do stuff.
Right. So Case of Evil actually has a link to Someday Over You.
Yes, we've discovered apparently there's some kind of a connection between these two stories.
Even though Case of Evil was released first, it actually follows the Someday Over You.
Oh, like that hasn't been done before.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that alone.
Yes.
But so we'll make everybody listen to the episode and then go rent Case of Evil.
I think that's a good idea. Let's not tell them.
I'm highly in favor of that.
Yeah.
I actually helped make sure of that one.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the structure of this, and something that I thought was interesting whenever you had posted on Facebook about how you really enjoyed Night Gallery, and that was one of my favorite things ever in the 70s. So this is, it's not Twilight Zone-ish, but it's more Night Gallery-ish in its introduction and the way it plays out, etc. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think that having grown up, on the anthology shows, because there was, of course, obviously there was the Twilight Zone, Night Gallery. Of course, whenever I was seeing Twilight Zone, it was out of its first run, but I was seeing it in reruns. But Night Gallery, I was watching it whenever it was in first run. But so those shows, Serling's introductions and his sort of exits from each episode, I really felt heavily influenced by those aspects, because I like having something, it's sort of the authorial tone of whoever's writing the episode to kind of make some commentary that isn't all as easy to kind of work into a story unless you have sort of a Sam Spade kind of character that's kind of talking during the episode.
Right.
And so for me, it's just, I kind of just feel like that piece needs to be there. And so, so we were heavily sort of influenced by Serling, but there were other anthology series along the way that had, I think, kind of added to that feeling as well. But
right.
that's largely a tip of the hat to Night Gallery and to Twilight Zone.
Yeah. So I think that it sets the stage. It also allows you to not have to do a lot of exposition in the story itself, and then it kind of moves you right into the action, and then the action picks up, and then there's a conclusion and a wrap up and a moral, if you will, shall we say. So I like that. It's kind of neat, and it takes me back too, because I loved Twilight Zone and I loved Night Gallery. In fact, I watch reruns of Night Gallery periodically.
There have been such wonderful things that have come out of the anthology series, and with something like Night Gallery or Twilight Zone, each episode could take you to a whole different place. And then even Quantum Leap was, although it had a couple of regular characters, was for all practical purposes an anthology show, because each one was a different story, a different environment, so different people of different social economic classes, etc.
Well, the funny thing is, too, is that, of course, now we live in the world of the serialized storylines that, every major television show these days, tend to have the long-going, season-long arc kind of stuff. But we grew up in a time period with most television series were episodic, where something would happen and it kind of stood alone, and which allowed you to kind of come in and discover a series. And you didn't necessarily need to know the 50 episodes that came before to understand where you were.
Right.
And I think particularly for a show like this, I think it's kind of nice to allow people to have that same kind of experience. The fact that you can come in and we're going to have, here's a funny episode, and it's like, we did this sort of jazz blues first episode. The second one is a science fiction series that's on a spaceship out in deep space, and the next one we're probably going to record after that's a weird Western. So we're all over the map in terms of kind of themes and places and times, and I think that's something that's a lot of fun for us and for the audience, because they always, are going to have different things that they can experience.
Right. I was marveling at the medium in which Someday Over You was presented, and that is old-time radio, radio drama, something. And this is something that I grew up with and just love to this day. Now, granted, there's something to be said about you can tell this fantastic story in a radio-type setting and have it be infinitely cheaper than presenting something on the boob tube or on the big screen and spending God knows how much money. But what kind of unique challenges does doing a story in this particular medium present as opposed to doing it in television? I mean, what sort of different kinds of obstacles did you have to face on a creative level in order to produce something of this level of quality?
I think with with this, a lot of it is having to paint the picture without having to say, like the intro, the voiceover at the beginning, and this is something we're having to convey to the other writers. We don't want to spell out, exactly the year and the place and everything, more give a feel for it, more of a set the mood. And I think having to paint the picture of both the flashback scenes and then the more modern ones without being too heavy-handed, there's that. And just having I know the rule in writing is have the characters tell the story, but it's never more true than when you just have the audio and no visual.
Yeah, it's particularly since we are filmmakers as well, you have to step back and say, how do I convey certain kinds of things that you just ignore because you've got a camera there, and so I don't need to explain. He just walked into the room and he picked up some object. Well, that's now turns into there are sound effects and how well can we, one thing is like something you take for granted is that one character looks at another character and they give them a certain kind of a look, which conveys a great deal in film. But in a story, it's conveying, how do I convey that same sense audibly of a way a character reacts to another character without it necessarily being dialogue? Is it a gasp? Is it a way that they move their feet or something they're holding? And so there are a lot of challenges in figuring out how to translate some of those visual cues into audio cues.
And to not make it sound, too over the top either, because I've heard other radio dramas that where it felt almost heavy-handed in trying to tell a scene or describe a scene through sound effects or vocal expressions, and I'll just go ahead and say there wasn't any of that. I mean, it was a perfect balance. So that must have been a really unique challenge to try and create something that does not seem over the top in terms of that kind of audible description.
Yeah, you don't have the sound effect of somebody says, "Was it you?" Da-da!
Well, no, but like I heard a radio play where someone's putting on a jacket and you heard him going. I mean, it's like he's grunting to put this stupid thing on, and I thought, really? I mean that's heavy-handed. That's over the top, and there wasn't any of that.
But there's one thing that's a specific example of something we did in the script.
Yeah.
Where there is a point where there are two characters that are talking to each other, and they're about to enter a building, and there's a sense that somebody else has come up from behind them, and so we want to give the sense of the turn, and what we kind of establish is that they're standing on kind of a pavement that's a little bit gravelly, and so there's just this very slight kind of grinding scrape that you hear between pieces of dialogue. But I think if you listen to it, you feel him turn around.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when in dialogue, it's just somebody says something, and in the other person, their tone has changed.
Yeah.
And you can tell that's instead of giving somebody a look, that's
right.
Letting them know that what they've said has fallen flat or upset them. And so there's little things like that, if they're not overdone, that can help convey.
And we got really lucky too, because Carvin was able to carry a lot of the work of sort of the inner monologue or the inner dialogue that's going on, because he helps us get into their heads a little bit. So the stuff that's sort of not spoken, but we need to sort of know the emotional states, and I think he did a really great job of capturing a lot it stuff.
Carvin's our composer.
Yeah,
right.
Carvin Knowles.
Yeah, I thought the episode was absolutely incredible. It was delightful to listen to. The story was it was sort of telegraphed, at least for me, but there was also a twist to it as well. So, it was kind of one of those, I think I know what's going to happen, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming.
Well, but there was some of that. Yeah, I kind of sense where this is going to go, and while it did go in that way, it was still presented in such a manner that I didn't feel disappointed at having figured it out.
Right, exactly.
Well, thank you. It's just like like I said, I want to have some degree of sort of, twistiness to our stories, but that's not really kind of our main thing. It's mainly about just we want to take people on an interesting ride and kind of immerse them in an experience,
Right.
and hopefully they enjoy the journey that we take them on.
Well, I would think that they did, because there was not a peep in the theater.
Yep.
Because as we may have said in our last episode, what was neat about the presentation is Miguel, as he introduced this, he turned the theater lights down as if we were going to watch a movie. Now, I understand there was supposed to be a visual aspect to it originally, and to be honest, I'm glad there wasn't. Because lowering the lights and just having the audio almost created a partial sensory deprivation experience, so that the audience was then forced to use their ears. And they were engaged. There's no question about it. I was held the entire time, and the audience was too. I mean, so that kind of speaks to the quality of the episode that was produced.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is there any shout outs that you want to give to anybody or any company or anything that for this episode of Someday Over You?
There are a ton of them, but I do want to thank all of our cast members again. Again, one of our first ones I want to send out to is actually the young lady who played Devona, or who played Marlena. Devona Williams, who played Marlena. She was amazing and fantastic, and she was somebody that we had actually, whenever we talked about doing this episode last year, she had actually agreed or she'd auditioned for it, but we actually had to put everything on hold. And so whenever we called her up a year later and said, "Hey, you're still interested in doing this?" She was very excited, but she was fantastic, and we loved working with her. We've got a great narrator, Daniel Pierce. And then we had Ron Christopher Jones, who was somebody else who had auditioned for this part a year ago, and really happy about our two younger stars, Patrick Gates and Vander Turner. These are really young guys, and as soon as we heard both of them were pretty much almost immediately cast whenever we heard their auditions. The only thing was that we actually went back and forth about which one was going to play which part, because we had kind of a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern thing going on because they were both amazing. And so we had to debate a little bit about them. And then again, once again, Carvin Knowles, who has been our composer for this and was the composer on The Case of Evil.
Right.
I want to mention Randy Davison too, because although he had small parts, he had a couple of small roles in here. He's an experienced actor. He teaches acting locally, and at our read-through, just before we recorded, Ron Christopher Jones wasn't able to join us, and so Randy didn't just read Ron's parts, he acted them, and it really helped us. I think it really helped, especially the new young actors that have joined us. We'll be working with him more, because he's very good with helping people.
He's the lead in our next episode.
Right.
Yes,
so,
he's
great guy.
Yes, and so anyway, so many others, too many to name right now, but there were many other people that contributed or participated, and we're so grateful.
And Beth Accomando and KPBS.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
That's what I was fishing for.
Oh, yes. And Beth was really fantastic. We told her about what we wanted to do, and she got us into KPBS, and they gave us a fantastic engineer, Don Johnson. He wasn't wearing the pink suit and didn't have the stubble, but he was a fantastic engineer for us, and I just love them to death for doing that for us.
Yeah, and
because we have the engineer, then Neal didn't have to worry as much about the technical aspects of the recording while we
concentrate on the performances.
Yes, we could both just focus on that.
Exactly. So we are. This was the pilot episode, and this pilot episode is actually going to be out there in the wild, shall we say, and we're going to play that for you, for our listeners, later on in this episode. So you'll get a chance for that. And do you want to tell us where they can find out, our listeners, tell them how they can find out more about Uncharted Regions and Swords and Circusry and more episodes.
Yeah, where can they learn more about everything that you guys are working on?
Yeah, there you go.
The first place to come and find information is going to be on our official website. It's still kind of in preliminary stages because I'm having to kind of work on it in between actually getting the episodes taken care of. But just visit unchartedregions.com, And then as we go along, we'll have more information. But right now, there's some summaries of some of the episodes we've got coming, and we have background information on the writers, and we'll have some more about the actors and some of the other behind-the-scenes folk. We have a Facebook page for Uncharted Regions, so you can come and visit that. We have a Swords and Circuitry web page as well. It's very out of date. And so we need to update that to include what we're working on with Uncharted Regions. But you can go visit it and look at some of the stuff we've worked on in the past. And also we have a Facebook page for that for Swords and Circuitry as well, Swords and Circuitry Studios.
On Twitter.
And then we are on Twitter, so at Swords Circuitry, and then at Uncharted Region, because there's only a certain number of characters, so we couldn't get under Uncharted Regions, so it's just at Uncharted Region. And then, of course, Jane and I both have our own personal Facebook pages. And that's probably between all of those that you can probably get all the information you want on Uncharted Regions. You'll be so sick of it. So we'll be we're kind of we're developing the further other episodes. So Haven, like I say, we're going to go into production in a few weeks with it. We just finished reading the first draft of Trail of Fears by Harris Orkin. Really excited about that episode. That's our Western. It's a really good script.
Very good.
And so anyway, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. And so we'll have information about auditions and other fun stuff that we're trying to do. And we're also hoping that we can get another appearance, maybe at another film festival or maybe a science fiction convention. Maybe where we'll debut Haven, but we're working on that stuff.
Well, we look forward to it, and we're very excited about
absolutely.
where
I can't
this
wait
is
to hear
going.
more.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And I just told Neal an idea I have for a story for season 2, so I think we're already going to be filling some slots.
Season 2.
Yay. All right.
I like the sound of that.
Well, thank you, Neal and Jana, for being on the show, and we're going to play the Someday Over You in the second half of our episode. So thank you for being on our show today.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Patricia Chica, director-producer of Morning After.
And I'm Christian Hotko, writer and actor of Morning After. And you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And here's a few selected birthdays for September. Good
Wow.
God, I can't talk today. I can't talk anytime, but...
and you do that for a living, too.
I know. Here's a few selected birthdays for September 25th through October 1st, 2017. And once again, I dropped the ball, so we have another belated birthday.
We do?
Yes, September 22nd was our friend Norman Gidney's birthday.
Normie,
he is the founder and grand poobah of HorrorBuzz.com. We've known Norm for quite some time.
Quite some time,
So,
yes.
Hippo Birdie Normie. On September 25th, we have several birthdays. Christopher Reeve.
Okay, I love Henry Cavill. I think he's a good Superman, but wow, Christopher Reeve, it's his. I'm sorry.
Yep. And Mark Hamill.
The Joker.
The Joker.
Well,
among other things.
Well, yeah, but to me, I mean, now I know him as the Joker. Well, or the Trickster on The Flash, and he's fantastic as that.
Yeah. Also on September 25th, Jean-Philippe Rameau. And he
was that
was
Rameau?
Rameau. Well, he was...
Rameau.
Rameau. Rameau.
Rameau.
Anyway.
You have to say it like you're choking.
Yeah. He was an ancient, I think he was born in 1607, so I think he was one of the very first to actually do something that could technically be considered opera today.
Really?
Yes. So one of the first. Anyway, also then we have on September 25th Dmitri Shostakovich, a 20th century contemporary composer that actually
that's really spanning the years.
Yeah, so we're got composers all over the place here. September 26th, Olivia Newton-John.
You know she's related to Elton John.
Yes, she is.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. And we have Ivan Pavlov. There you go. Also, George Gershwin,
Another composer.
another composer, and also on September 25th, Abraham Whipple. I get Mr. Whipple, but it said he was born in like 1695 or something.
Wow, man, on those
1740.
commercials, he was looking good. He must have had work
But
done.
it also said that he was a Revolutionary War somebody.
Okay, so he's a Renaissance man.
Yeah, he's a Renaissance man. So he looked pretty good on those commercials. That's for sure.
He had work done, trust me.
Yep. September 27th, Don Cornelius.
Soul Train!
Yeah.
And I never want to step inside that soundstage ever again.
Yeah, we did a tour way back of Paramount Studios, and they had the Soul Train soundstage recreated, but they had still had all the
set.
Oh, that's right, because they had still been recording up to about a year before.
Right, it was still the set, and this is the set that all the dancers would be on
my
whenever they're
Lord.
recording an episode. And if you ever watch it on low def television as it was in the day, this thing looked like it was made out of stainless steel. But you take one look at it, and it's made out of like cardboard paper and duct tape.
Exactly.
I was like, I don't even want to get near it lest it falls apart.
Oh my God, yes. Also on September 27th, Wilford Brimley.
Everybody's favorite old fart.
Yep, and Daniel Franks, a friend of ours from the Verde Valley Comic Book Expo.
Right.
September 28th, Peter Finch. I'm mad as hell.
I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I was thinking, is that network?
Yes, it
I
was.
completely went blank there.
Yes. Also, Thomas Crapper.
The inventor of the
modern
modern toilet.
Exactly.
And we learned all about that when we were in Seattle and we did the underground tour.
Yeah. Also on September 28th, Ed Sullivan.
Really
big show. September 29th, Enrico Fermi. Gene Autry and James Starks, a friend of ours from the Beyond the Impact. Beyond the Impact.
He's one of the producers, I believe.
Yes. September 30th, John Mathis.
Chances are you ever in the moment you come into you.
Yeah, there you go. Also on September 30th, Truman Capote and the famous poet and I suppose that you could call him a mystic, Rumi. He was born in 1207.
I know nothing about him.
Yeah, he was mostly philosopher, poet type thing.
Okay.
Also, Jackie Taryn Rankle.
I went to high school with her. Happy birthday, Jackie.
Yes. And October 1st, Julie Andrews.
Oh, the Hills are still so alive.
Yeah, and Richard Harris. And speaking of one of the Hills, John Hill, my favorite brother-in-law.
Your favorite brother-in-law.
Yeah. So, and that's it for the birthdays this time.
Mark your calendars and plan to attend PIY 2017. PIY is the Podcast It Yourself workshop, and it's happening in Phoenix, Arizona, October 28th, 2017. This interactive workshop is being held for people who want to start a podcast or want to learn more about podcasting from experienced and respected podcasters. Learn about software, hardware, accessories, best practices, and more. And of course, we've got prize drawings to make podcasters weak in the knees. The workshop coincides with the long-awaited release of Podcasting for Dummies 3rd edition. Authors T. Morris and Chuck Tomasi will be at DIY to answer questions and sign books. Oh, and it also happens to be T's birthday, so come help him celebrate after the workshop is done. You do not want to miss this event. Spaces are limited. Go to podcastingfordummies.com and sign up for PIY 2017. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Podcastingfordummies.com and PIY 2017. Go. Now.
Go check it out on podcastingfordummies.com and the PIY 2017 tab. It's only $20, We're going to be there. It's in Phoenix. You should come on down. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun, yes.
Yeah.
No feedback.
No feedback today.
Well, it's not that we don't have any. I mean, there has been some feedback, but we decided we're going to hold off onto it because we've got something special to share with you
Special
now.
thing, and we don't want the episode to run
Too long.
horrifically long. We're trying to keep it at an hour to a little bit more, sometimes, but We're trying.
Yeah, we're
very
really
trying. Anyway, if you do have some feedback, please, we do want to hear it, whether it's good or bad. You can comment on our Facebook page, tggeeks.com, any number of other places, on Twitter, and you can even leave us a voicemail at where am I? 469
You're in
TG Geeks.
Phoenix, Arizona.
That's
where it's supposed to be cooling.
469-844-3357.
The force is strong with the Two Gay Geeks webcast.
And, of course, that's always our intro music for our second segment. But this time we're going to have the full and complete, unabridged audio drama, Someday Over You.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go.
Beyond everything we know, beyond everything we believe, an infinity of alternate worlds spin invisibly alongside our own. Time may run backwards, or the impossible becomes the probable. At every turn, wonders or terrors await those who unwittingly cross over. Welcome, travelers, to the Uncharted Regions.
The sounds were from a different time, from a different place. They were the sounds of smoke-filled back rooms and deserted alleyways, of cruising black autos and flashing Tommy guns. But when the city slept, one voice wavered in the stillness, drawing men like moths to the blaze of her siren song. Once they came to adore her, to forget, to float away on melancholy waves of golden sound. She gathered all the lost souls of the world in her songs, and they wept in her voice. But that had been a long time ago. All that remained now were the records, playing softly over and over and over, until the old man could forget. Tonight, Someday Over You.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hawkins won't be answering any more questions today. The death of his grandfather has been quite stressful enough for him.
Now that he's gone, could you elaborate on some of the strange rumors about him?
Pops has only been dead 3 hours, and already you hyenas are gnawing at his bones.
Don't swell her head, Hawkins. She hasn't worked her way out to hyena yet.
Please, Mr. Hawkins will answer questions tomorrow at a press conference. There will be no more questions for today. Press packets will be emailed out to your respective outlets this evening.
Come on, Foster. Who are those people? 10 minutes after I got off the phone with the funeral home, those scum were nosing around here with their cameras. Do you know they took pictures of him as they were putting him in the hearse?
Woodward Hawkins was a very public man. It's terrible for everyone. I'm very sorry about your loss.
You know, I thought that old man would live forever. Like, someone like him could just never die. You think someday I'd be 90, but Pops would still be knocking around this place. Still playing his records and talking about the good old days.
He certainly left behind a legacy. This place is quite the palace.
He never showed you around?
Never had the pleasure. Usually the agency had just handled everything over the phone, but obviously today, well, we just want to do right by your family.
I'll give you the nickel tour. An oil contractor started on the house in 1905, but his business fell through and he was forced to leave. It stood vacant until 1921 when Grandfather bought it and finished the job. I almost think he loved this house as much as he did his music.
It's amazing. He must have sold even more records than I'd realized.
He sold his share, but he wasn't much of a player. He'd tell you that himself. His real claim to fame wasn't in who he was, but who he discovered.
Hey, on the wall there, is that
Elliot Dawes? One of his first finds. Best harp player in his time. Maybe the best there ever was. I think this was taken outside of the Rose Club in Philadelphia.
Must have been tough for your grandfather these last couple of years. Walking past all these people. All these faces staring out from the wall. It's like living in a house full of ghosts.
That's strange. Do you hear that?
Hear what?
It's coming from inside his music room. This is where I found him this morning. Sitting right there in that chair, listening to the Victrola. I could have sworn I'd shut it off.
You had other things on your mind. Whoa, this is some record collection. It's like the Library of Congress in here. Wow, an original acetate master of Deke Williams from his good years. What is it?
Just looking at this record that Grandfather was listening to before he died. I thought I knew everything in his collection, but this, it's Marlena Mathis.
You're pulling my leg.
You think I'm joking, Mr. Foster? Today of all days?
Of course not, but it's impossible. Marlena never recorded anything. All the history book says she was adamant. She wouldn't even get near a studio. She was terrified of him.
Well, Grandfather had a way of getting the things he wanted out of people. He used to say she was the greatest torch singer who ever lived.
She's incredible.
She's everything Pop's always said she was. A real star.
But I don't get it. Why didn't he press this? Why wouldn't he have shared this with the rest of the world?
Could be he wanted her all to himself. Or maybe she just wanted it this way. He kept a lot of things to himself, especially when it came to her. It's a crime. It's in such terrible condition. I guess we just add it to the list of recordings lost in action.
It doesn't have to say that way. There are people who could restore it.
If Granddaddy saw fit to never release it, then I don't think we should meddle with it.
I'm not talking about something for the public. It's just for you. For preservation's sake. I have got a guy with a whole restoration outfit. He can digitize it and clean it up so well you'd think she laid down that track yesterday.
I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't like to hear that. You really think he could do something with it?
I can ask. Worst thing that can happen is he can't do anything with it. And you're stuck with a record with only a few more plays left in it.
Not much use in a record you can never play. This friend of yours, he reliable? Will he take good care of it?
Oh, if he gets a shot at a Marlena Mathis record, he'll treat it like it's a holy relic.
It is, son. It is. I'll let you take it to him with one condition. No publicity, no media coverage, not a whisper to anyone who doesn't need to know about it. And absolutely no word that this was the last thing Grandfather ever listened to. Outside of this room, it doesn't exist. You feel me?
Cross my heart and hope to... I'm sorry. Poor choice of words.
Goodbye, Mr. Foster.
April 22nd, 1925. Today's my 28th birthday, but I feel bone tired, like I'm 100 if I'm a day. Seems no matter how much sleep I get, it's never enough. My cousin says I need to see a doctor, but I can't pay with the little money I make scrubbing floors at the boarding house. For so long, I've prayed and prayed on this. But at last, I think the Lord has sent me an angel. A man come to our church social today and listened while I sang. He said I have a special gift and that he could help me if I let him. He's sending a car for me on Tuesday. I don't know where he means to take me, but I have a feeling he's important. That he's a special man himself somehow. Maybe things are about to change for the better.
Hang on. Hang on. Who's there?
Hello? I can barely hear you.
Foster? Foster? Wait a second. Foster, is that you?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Hawkins. Do you have a minute? I have an update on our special project.
Sure, I'll buzz you in. I'm in the music room. You remember the way?
Be right there.
Alrighty then. Little help to pull this together. Let's get these records back where they belong. And these should go here. Where the devil is Volume 3 gone? I swear I left it. Ah, Bessie Smith goes here, or... You are just in time. Can you help an old man move a bookcase?
What? Sure, I guess.
All right, grab that end. I'll go that way.
Aren't you rich people supposed to hire people to do this?
I do for myself. It keeps me from just sitting here feeling sorry for myself. And I've learned a thing or two.
Like what?
You start rearranging a man's house, and you make some interesting discoveries. Like this old trunk I found in the attic just this morning. What do you think that is, young squire?
A diary. Was it your grandfather's?
Marlena's. Picture of her inside the cover there, too. Face like an angel. She was something, sure enough. You starstruck, son?
Look, Woody, we need to talk about her record.
Your friend made some progress? I'm sure looking forward to hearing what he did.
Have you seen the news today? Gone online?
Haven't bothered since the day Pops died. TV was talking about him having mob connections. People saying he had AIDS or something. Nobody believes anybody can just die of a heart attack anymore.
You should look at this. Today's paper. I'm afraid the word is out about the recording. They'll leak the information to the press.
Says here Marlena's single, Someday Over You, will be released in 3 weeks.
I am so sorry. I had no idea about this until this morning. I opened this up and there it was.
They're saying the record was never released because it was a cover-up. That Pops had her murdered because she was singing about an affair with him. Those lyrics weren't about him.
You sure about that?
What, you want to drag his name through the mud too?
No, I'm saying the media is going to talk about this with or without you. Maybe if you showed them the diary.
I wish to God I hadn't have played you that record. Nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
Is there something in her journal that might clear this up? Something that tells who the lyrics really are about?
What's in that book isn't nobody's business except Marlena's.
And your grandfather's. Why else would she have left it to him unless they were close? Or maybe he got a hold of it because of something she said that he didn't want getting out.
He was a harmless old horn man who took pity on a woman who life had done wrong. He had nothing to hide.
Even good men have secrets, Woody. Mistakes they've made, things they regret. We've all hurt people. Even people we'd never mean to hurt at all.
Off! Off! This crazy Victrola's been acting up for weeks. Spring must have gone bad.
That was another Marlena record. You found more?
I didn't find anything, you hear me? As far as the rest of the world knows, that record I gave you is the only thing Marlena ever left behind in this world. And it's gonna stay that way. You're gonna help me stop the man from releasing that record. It's mine, you hear me?
Well, the trouble is it isn't exactly. The record is, sure, but the reproduction rights? Unless there's some receipt that your uncle paid her for it, technically it doesn't belong to anyone anymore.
Don't you play games with me.
I'm on your side, Hawkins. Honest, I'm just explaining the situation. Find me something that shows the recordings were for his label, and we can put a stop to this release. Find out why your pops hid the evidence of these sessions, we can muzzle the press. I think all our answers are in that diary. If you don't want to read it, then I will just take...
I'll dig up the dead on my own, thank you, Mr. Foster. I'll let you know if I find anything.
Whatever the agency can do, just let me know.
July 8th, 1926. 1 year in Chicago and how things have changed. What a different world this is from my humble little home in Spring Oak. It's so much brighter here, so much more lively. Woodward looks over me like a rooster over a laying hen, and he dotes over my littlest needs. But at times, I wish I had real friends with which I could pass the time. For all its many splendors, this city can be lonely at night. Come to think of it, I don't think I've seen a familiar face more than twice in the audience at any of my performances. Woodward keeps us moving, never playing the same club more than 2 nights in a row. He says it's what's best for us, but the other performers tell me it's an odd way of doing business. Whatever his reasons are, I have to believe he's doing this for us, and that he has my best interest at heart, 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 at heart.
Oh, Lordy. You settle down now. Settle down. You're beating a mile a minute. No reason for that at all. Where'd I leave that phone? Hello?
You okay? You sound like you had a morning.
I'm fine. What do you want?
Well, I was calling to see if you'd found anything in Marlena's journal.
Nothing in it.
Really? Nothing at all. Totally blank.
It's just piddly stuff, Foster. Club dates, money woes, her illness. Only thing about Pops is just about him helping her out and managing her show. Not a thing in it would give him any reason to want to shut her up.
So, there's nothing about the investigation.
Investigation?
I thought for sure she'd mention it.
I don't know what you're talking about. What investigation?
After everything started, I dug into the old PR files. Stuff that's been locked up for years. Seems that back in 1926, your Pops was the prime suspect in a series of deaths in Chicago.
What?
It was a big case. 15 men all died in mysterious circumstances. The last any of them were seen alive were at clubs where Marlena had been performing. Cops thought he was killing off men who got too close to her.
I never heard tell of it.
Our agency takes care of our people, Mr. Hawkins. They buried it deep. You sure there's nothing in those journals?
Lord Almighty. Woodward keeps us moving.
What did you say? I didn't catch what...
How'd those men die?
Well, weirdest thing about it. 15 men, all dead with no sign of a prior health problem.
Police thought he might have used some kind of poison on him.
It wasn't no poison. How fast can you get here?
15, maybe 20 minutes, but what do you
We gotta get to your friend that has Marlena's record and shut him down.
I don't think you'll be able to talk him out of it.
You leave that to me. Just move it.
It's been weeks now since the last time I took the stage. I'm so very weak and tired. Worse now than I've ever been. I feel as though the skin is about to slide off my bones. But Woodward says I gotta sing to stay well. That I have to keep at it and keep singing as long as there's anyone left to listen to me. That's my cure. He thinks maybe if I cut a record, maybe things will change. In my heart, though, diary, there is a black cloud there I can't explain. When I think of that needle carving my voice into eternity, a part of me goes stone cold. I don't believe we were meant to live on past the time the good Lord's given us on this earth. Surely such a thing is unnatural. And I can't help but think a terrible price must be paid for our arrogance.
Look, Mr. Hawkins, I don't know what you're hoping to achieve here, but
Those cops had one thing right, Foster. Pops was in love with her, and he was willing to do whatever it took to save her life. It's between the lines in everything she says in that journal. Open up in there!
So you do think he was killing people for her?
You didn't listen to a thing I said on the way over here, did you?
I think you're grasping for any reason that your grandfather wasn't behind what happened, which is understandable.
Hey, can I help you guys with something?
Depends. You the dude that's got my record?
This is Mr. Hawkins, Steve.
Hawkins. Oh, the Marlena Mathis record.
So you do have it?
What? Me? No. I'm just third monkey on the totem pole. You're looking for Bill. He's working inside.
Then how about we go inside and pay Bill a visit?
Get those headphones off of him.
Turn off that music.
Bill, wake up. Come on, man, come on.
Does he have a pulse?
You ain't gonna find no pulse, son. How do I cut off the music?
Bill, listen to me. Bill, you can do this. You can do this. Come on.
How do I turn off the music?
Can't you see a man's dying here?
He's already gone.
Wait, Hawk, what are you...
What's wrong with you? A man's dead, and you come in and wreck the booth?
I want to know where the original is.
What original?
Marlena's record. You're gonna show it to me right now, or I'm gonna do worse to you than I did to that console.
Just do what he's asking, Steve. Give it to him.
It should be there in a sleeve on the shelf. I'm getting security.
Careful with that record. You can't do it, Hawkins. She was one of a kind. You can't destroy that voice. Can't take away what she spent a lifetime to create.
It ain't her lifetime we have to worry about anymore, Foster. Don't you get it? Don't you understand that all those folks that died back in the day were dying because of her and her voice? That's what kept her alive. Then when Pops recorded her, he bottled up all that bad mojo. Every time someone listens to it, it gets a chance to kill again.
That's crazy!
I'd say tell your dead friend here that. But I suspect he ain't listening no more. Rest in peace, Marlena.
You sure Bill's dead?
I don't know, but yeah, I think so. He wasn't moving and I couldn't feel a pulse.
Who's the one that busted up this console?
That would be me.
Then sit down. I'll deal with you after the ambulance gets here.
Now that we stopped Marlena's record going out, I got all the time in the world.
You're joking, right? I mean, you don't seriously think your bullshit stopped the release? Didn't you tell him, Foster?
I hadn't gotten the chance.
You know what century we're living in now, right, Grandpa? Destroying the record, destroying the master tape? You didn't destroy a thing. Bill sent the Wave preview file out to every blues station in town last night.
Tell me he's lying, Foster.
See, asshole? We even got an app for it. For your phone. Look.
Stop it! Stop it!
Sir, you're gonna need to have to calm down.
Shut it off! Shut it off! Shut it off! Shut it off!
A sacrifice for art that went a little too far. A sad song sung once too often that rings in the heart of Woody Hawkins, grandson of the greatest blues producer who ever lived. No one seems to notice that heart fatalities are on the upswing in Chicago this year, except for one special visitor to the Uncharted Regions.
Someday Over You was written, directed, and produced by Neal Hallford and Jana Hallford. Featured in tonight's cast were Daniel Pierce, Ron Christopher Jones, Patrick Gates, Devonna Williams, Vander Turner, Randy Davison, and Kristen Naomi Garcia. Someday Over You original lyrics and music by Neal Hallford, arranged and performed by Carvin Knowles and Devonna Williams. Original soundtrack by Carvin Knowles. Production engineers were Don Johnson, Neal Hallford, Carvin Knowles, Devonna Williams, and Daniel Pierce. Production assistants were Kristen Naomi Garcia and Alex E. McDaniel. Special thanks to Beth Accomando, KPBS, Miguel Rodriguez, Don Johnson, Keith Lane, Ben Ragunton, and Pond 5. This episode was sponsored by Two Gay Geeks and Billy Joe Kane. Uncharted Regions is a production of Swords and Circuitry Studios, which is solely responsible for its content.
And now we're back.
Yes, wasn't that fascinating? I love that.
It was so enjoyable, and I would say that we had the distinct advantage of being in a darkened theater.
Yep.
Miguel at the Horrible Imaginings Film Festival turned the lights down, and it created the most wonderful ambiance. So if you get a chance and you want to listen to it again, do so. Put the headphones on, find a darkened room with some nice mood lighting, and listen to it that way. That I think you might get a much more profound experience.
Yeah. And as always, we have our follow-up items. Check out our calendar on the website. Hopefully it'll be up to date soon. I'll add the pieces that I need to add, the birthdays that I've missed so far, and put those on there so I don't miss them again, and be sure to check it. And whether it's a con or a birthday or a film festival or whatnot, send us a note. We'll be glad to add it to our calendar. Phoenix Comic-Con Fan Fest returns to Phoenix on November 11th and 12th, 2017. Quite a few guests have been announced, including Ernie Hudson,
Ghostbusters,
Kevin McNally, most famous for Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
That's right.
Yes. And several of the Steven Universe cast members, and 4 from the Willy Wonka, the original.
Yes, the good one.
Yeah. Charlie, Veruca, Violet, and Mike TV. are all going to be guests. I would imagine they're going to do a Willy Wonka panel.
That
as
would be
well,
fun.
so.
I've got to admit, and I was talking to some coworkers, and they were actually going to be going now.
Oh, cool.
They hadn't planned on it, but when they heard that they were going to be at FanFest, they said, "Oh, but we got to go.
We got to go now." As well as several comic book artists and wrestlers. So check out myfanfest.com for more info. And of course, Phoenix Comic-Con returns to the Convention Center on May 24th through 27th. 2018. Now, there's going to be more information after FanFest, so just hold on to your horses and your hats and saddles, and it's going to be the wildest ride in
convention in the Southwest.
Whatever. Arizona Opera presents a not-to-be-missed opportunity, Hercules versus the Vampires, a new hybrid film and live music event using the 1961 Mario Bava film Hercules in the Underworld as the base. And there's been new music composed by Patrick Morganelli.
New music?
New music for, well, new music. Well,
oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's set the dialogue to music. Let's
right.
Put it that way.
I thought it's like what? It's like they did new music on top of the music that was already done.
No.
Okay.
New music for this particular Hercules versus the Vampires.
Okay.
It should be a wild ride, so several special events are planned prior to the performance of Hercules versus the Vampires, so stay tuned for those events, or you can check out Arizona Opera at azopera.org. Also, as we had the little bumper earlier, Podcast It Yourself for PIY 2017 is October 28th. Don't miss it. We're going to be there.
We'll be there.
It's only $20, so check it out, podcastingfordummies.com. Come see us and say hi. We're going to be at the following events, the PIY, Podcast It Yourself, on October 28th, and Phoenix Comic-Con Fan Fest, November 11th and 12th. And as you all know, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, etc. There's a lot of great talent out there, and if you hear somebody that's doing a crowdfunding campaign, it means that they don't have the big money. So be sure and check that campaign out, and if you feel like it, contribute to that campaign, because you never know. You might be part of something big.
And I want to add, we might be in L.A. first part of November, too.
Yes.
For Morning After. There's a screening there at a festival, if I'm not mistaken.
And it was a crowdfunded short film, and we were co-executive producers on that.
And we might be down in Tucson fairly soon.
Yeah, for another film festival. Now, hopefully next week we're going to have that director of that film, so we'll
have more details about that. But yes, there'll be more appearances for us before the year is out.
Yes, so please consider supporting independent creators.
Special thanks to Doctor Who Talking Who. They are on Twitter. They published the Doctor Who Fancast Guide. In fact, they just did a big push on a movie review that we ran just a few days ago. So thank you, Doctor Who Talking Who.
Yes, thank you.
We greatly appreciate it. All you got to do to find the Fancast Guide, go to Twitter and look for @TalkingWho. Also, we are good friends with the Human Ankle. I mean, Arkle. Love you, Brian.
Yeah.
Really do. And Human Arkle, he publishes the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News, which also republishes many of our stories and articles and episodes, and you can find that by going to Twitter, looking for @Arkle, ARKLE. And also, Brian is on Tumblr. He has the Incorrect Star Trek Voyager quotes. Check it out. It's great for a laugh, but just don't do it in front of your boss.
Yep. Somebody else that we love on Twitter is The Lookie Show. It's @Lookie Show. The twins, they are wonderful. They also have a great YouTube show. Check it out, Lookie Show. They do interesting and unique reviews of films and TV shows, etc. So check them out.
And as always, a great big thank you to Jeremiah Reeves. He is the moderator for probably my personal favorite Facebook group page. It is called The Gay Geek. And that's all Gay Geek G. How hard is that one? Of course we love
Gay
it.
Geek G?
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you want to check it out, all you got to do is go to facebook.com/groups/thegaygeek. anybody can join. All you got to do is you just have to be nice. That's all there is to it. But anybody can join that group. And they share they allow us to post our episodes there.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Jeremiah Reeves.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah. And we want to remind you to occasionally click on our Amazon ads. You can find them at the bottom of each article that we publish, as well as widgets on the right-hand side of the page. Doesn't cost anything. But if you do choose to buy something from Amazon, use one of our search ads. We get a little bit of a kickback, and thank you for clicking on those. And lastly, check us out on iHeartRadio and every bunch of other places.
Yeah,
so,
we're making the rounds.
Yeah, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. Next time, we're going to have a director, hopefully, unless something changes during the week, we're going to have a director of a new film, the one that we talked about that might be at Tucson Film, or is at Tucson Film Festival. Actually, it is at the Oaxaca Film Festival as well. Same night. It's showing in 2 different places. So Ari Gold is the director of that. We're going to talk to him next week. So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for the webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.